Tales from the wild. Stories from the heart. A journey into the mind and soul of fired-up business professionals where they share their vision for the future. And hear from a different non-profit organization every month as they create awareness of their goals and their needs. Dive into a world of untamed passion as we join our host, Shireen Buerta, for this month's episode of Friends from Wild Places.
Well, welcome back. Shireen here. I am your virtual boutique bookkeeper and QuickBooks advisor. The season of gratitude is here. Let's take a moment to appreciate what truly matters. Your business, right? Are you uncertain about where you stand financially? Well, at Shireen's Bookkeeping Services, we're here to help you find clarity and peace of mind. Our expert team transforms complex numbers into clear insights so you can focus on what you do best, which is growing your business. This Thanksgiving, give yourself the gift of confidence. If you want to know more, go check me out at www.shireensbookkeeping.com and allow me to keep your books clean so you don't have to. Welcome back, listeners. You are listening to Friends from Wild Places with myself, Shireen, your host, and my amazing co-host, Tanya. How you doing, Tanya?
I'm doing great, Shireen. So glad we have the time this morning to discuss gratitude and how important it is and what it means to each of us and for our listeners also to take a moment and just kind of step back and breathe and allow.
I love that. Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, Tanya, if you also, while you're at it, won't you just mention a little bit about our subscriptions for the extra content that we create?
Sure. So here at Friends from Wild Places podcast, we have our guests featured once a month. And we also have extra content, bonus content that Shireen and I go deeper on certain subjects, kind of like unraw, unedited material. And I guess it could be raw and unraw, depending on your perspective. So we just go into deeper topics. If you have a topic that you would like us to discuss, feel free to drop us a line. And for as little as $5 a month, you can get behind that paid wall. So feel free to share with your friends and family and give the gift of giving. Friends from Wild Places podcast.
Thank you so much, Tanya. You said it perfectly. It's if you enjoy listening to us, then we would really support, really appreciate your support via the subscriptions. Last month we had an amazing visitor on show with us. Her name was Irma, and she gave us some really good tips on how to keep our employees happy, and keep our business healthy. So if you want to listen a little bit more in detail of that series, that was last month's series. There's a total of three series over the whole month, 3 episodes over the whole month. So please go take a listen. We'd really appreciate it. And we already appreciate you anyway for all your support. So anyway, let's get into it. I'd love to introduce our guest for this month, Joseph Drumheller. We're so excited to have you here with us. Drumheller is a founder of JDH Academy of Wellness, a master hypnotherapist, energy healer, award-winning author, and an advocate for soul evolution. He spent 6 years perfecting his craft by working as a clinical hypnotherapist in a cancer radiation clinic. His mission is to help all people heal and awaken to the greatest version of who they were meant to be. Welcome on the show, Joseph.
Thank you. Honored to be here. Thank you very much.
This is exciting.
Excited. Yes, we're so excited for this podcast.
Oh, thanks. Me too.
We have so
It's
many
exciting stuff,
questions.
yeah.
I know
Oh,
we have so many questions, but before we get into those questions, Joseph, we want to get into a little bit of an icebreaker, which uh, many of the listeners know this about myself and Tanya, is that we really enjoy true crime. But this time around, I've got something more interesting, something out of the ordinary that we normally don't. Well, we have actually spoken about this topic once or twice before. But it's not really a trial or murder case or anything like that, or a criminal case. It's more an unusual death that has occurred. And I'm really interested to hear what you two think about it. But let me just give you the details of the story. I don't know if any of you have heard of. I want to get their names correct. I've got it all written down so I don't get anything mixed up. So hold on tight. The Warrens, that's right. So if any of you know, it is Ed and Lorraine Warren. They were renowned paranormal investigators. They established a museum in 1952 and was called the Warren Occult Museum. This was a collection of allegedly, we have to put the word allegedly, haunted artifacts located in Monroe, Connecticut. This is what they protected in their house. They are no longer with us. They passed away, this couple. But their stories and the cases that they worked on still live today in the movies we know better know as The Conjuring. And also, many of you might have heard of the doll, Annabelle. This doll still sits in the occult museum, locked away in a box. Ed and Lorraine Warren would always emphasize how dangerous the doll was, and hence the reason it was locked up in a specific box that had, it was blessed by priests and had all these crosses on it and whatever for protection. And they said a lot that they make sure that they protect the outside world from all these artifacts, one of which being this doll. Now, they have passed away, but they also started founded a group. Now, I need to get this right as well. All these details, listeners, is important, I believe. So yes, let's get into the details of this. So they founded a group called the NESPRA Group. Stands for New England Society for Psychic Research. Now, when they passed away, they have a board of members, and part of the board of members consists of a paranormal investigator, Dan Rivera. He's also well known for his work, but Ed and Lorraine were his mentors as he got into this position, career. I don't know really what to label it. But so what happened was he died suddenly at the age of 54 while on tour with the Annabelle doll. The tour's name was the Devils on the Run tour, which featured the allegedly haunted doll, was in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania at the time, and Rivera's death occurred in his hotel room, and the Annabelle doll was not present at the time. Rivera's death has sparked discussions and speculation within the paranormal community, with some fans attributing his death to the doll. However, Adams County Coroner Francis Dubois confirmed that the doll was not in Rivera's hotel room at the time of his death and that the cause of death is still under investigation. The New England Society of Psychic Research, where Rivera was a senior lead investigator, released a statement expressing their heartbreak and stating they are still processing the loss. They also noted that Rivera's work was driven by a desire to educate, help, and connect with others. The organization plans to continue with previously planned events honoring Rivera's memory and continuing his work. So my question is, do you think this was a coincidence and natural causes, or do you think that there is something more sinister going on here? What do you think? Should we start with Joseph? What do you think, Joseph?
Okay. Well, actually, I don't think I can comment on either one, whether it's like it was sinister or a coincidence. But what I can tell you is that I have had in my work as a hypnotherapist and energy healer, I have had exposure to dark energy. So dark energy is very real. And I actually teach it in my clinical hypnotherapy certification courses. I have one lecture on working with dark energies. And because it's an introductory course, I tell my students to avoid it at all costs because there is entities are very real and they can be very dangerous. If you don't know what you're doing, you can open yourself up to who knows what. In my exposure to a couple entities, they have been life-threatening a couple of times, and when you're working in the abstract and the unknown, you know you're not really sure what to do, even if you do have experience in it, and so you're stepping outside of the box of what is normal, and you're actually stepping into something that can be potentially dangerous. So I think the saying in energy healing goes, energy flows where attention goes. And so in my work and in my teachings and what I do with everyone, we try and keep everything focused specifically on the positive. So we don't try and give the negative energy um, any footing by giving it any attention whatsoever. So you know, I don't know anything really about their society and what they're doing. From the video that you showed me, it looked a little bit, you know, sensationalistic for entertainment purposes. And so, you know, I wouldn't touch that stuff with a 10-foot pole, quite honestly. So that's just my experience and stuff like that. So, you know, whatever the people are doing, they're doing it to uplift and help people. That's great. You know, I wish them the best, but I don't think I would actually be part of that.
I
So
agree.
yeah, so it's because I can actually, you know, you can actually feel a presence of negativity if you focus on it, and so you don't want to let that into your auric space at all. You want to stay very protected. So, and that is one of the first things I teach all of my students that you have to set yourself up energetically and protect yourself.
Mm,
Just because when you go into the subconscious, the abstract, and the non-physical, you know, you're opening yourself up to a different world
mm,
that is not physical, and so you just want to make sure you're protected, especially in the beginning when you may not know what you're doing so much or you don't have as much experience. So,
mm.
so
Right.
that's my take on it. I can share you like some lengthy stories of my entity run-ins if you
Oh
want, but
my gosh.
yeah.
It's so
So I
interesting.
worked in a hospital and they tend to hang around hospitals. So the entities, you know, you usually find, in my experience, you find entities where people have died unexpectedly or they haven't wanted to die. And so that the disembodied energy form doesn't, is kind of, I guess, this is one take on it, that they're kind of lost and they grab onto whatever they can. And
Mm,
so most of them that I've had contact with are benign. They're just kind of like blobs of energy that make you feel like something's not right, or if they attach to you or you're sick or something. So those can be cleared off pretty easily. I've run into two that were very hostile, very hostile. One was wanted to do harm, and I think the other one just wanted to get out of the situation it was in and would run over anybody that was in the way. So um, those are my two main experiences with them. So
wow. That's hectic. That is
Fascinating,
hectic.
fascinating, Joseph.
Yeah,
yeah.
Tanya, what do you think?
So I'm gonna agree with Joseph. So as a funeral director, right, we're around deceased decedents and of all different types of deaths. And I just think, you know, as humans, whether you're a hypnotherapist, funeral director, or in the paranormal world, any of our listeners out there, you can walk into a room sometimes and feel like when the energy is positive, even if no one speaks, right? You can just feel. So I like to, I don't know if Einstein actually, I know he's coined with it, but energy is neither created nor destroyed. And I like that because energy is real and there's good energy and there's negative or bad energy, so to speak. So anytime you're dealing with unexplained or paranormal situations, people can attach that meaning to what it means for them. So it's interesting that that this couple founded their foundation in Monroe, Connecticut, because I'm actually from Connecticut, born and raised, lived my first 3 years in Connecticut before I transitioned to Florida. So the next time I'm in Connecticut, I want to go check out this, this place. When we look at the causes of death, I mean, there's, first of all, like no one gets out of the world alive, right? So it's kind of like, it's not like it happens to some people and not another, but there's so many, occurrences or situations, even with regular people. For example, maybe somebody got an infection and they died, or maybe somebody was crossing the street and it was an accident or a suicide or a homicide. So when I look at the cause of death to say, was it caused by quote unquote this doll, or did this doll have any interaction? I don't know. I wouldn't put too much meaning on it. To me, that is kind of irrelevant. I will say that the energy factor for me is of utmost importance, like Joseph is describing. And I also had a situation. I'm not a Reiki or any energy healer by any types, but I just do energy kind of work on my own. Like I'm not certified in it. But one time I did not protect myself before I did it. And this was about 6 months ago. And my friend was physically ill and I went to clear her and I actually got violently ill for about 6 hours. So I really had to stop and realize like what happened to me. I was feeling fine and I was sicker than sick. So I realized sometimes that energy, if you don't protect yourself and you're working with it, it can be very dark and you can actually take it on, or actually can manifest into physical like maladaptations. So that's my take on it, Shireen.
Crazy. Oh my gosh, yes. So I know there's a spiritual world out there. I know it. I respect it. I don't want to fiddle with it. I don't want to go there. I don't want to open myself to it. I know that Ed and Lorraine Warren, they were helping a lot of these families that were struggling with these entities that were attaching themselves to these families, and they were actually working with the Catholic Church and assisting the families via the Catholic Church, and obviously in advising the Catholic Church if the case was legitimate and needed an exorcism. And then obviously the Catholic Church would review the case and then send one of the priests down to help. But regardless, they are now passed. So whether or not this new group is continuing what they were doing, I don't know. I really don't know, because I think sometimes fame and fortune can get mixed up with the glossiness of the show and tell of it all. And so it's very hard to discern those right now, and trying to see what's what and pull it apart. I would agree with Joseph and with you, Tanya, in what you're saying, 100%. So weird.
Yeah, also with the doll itself, I won't mention the name, but with it'll take on any energy that people give it.
Right.
So if a lot of people are focusing on this like, demonic thing, then it'll manifest into that. So
Right.
based on
Right.
mentioned, and necessarily the doll itself.
Exactly. I mean, and if you actually follow the whole story of their cases with this doll, and how, the actual story of how it went from family, I'm like, what are you doing, dudes? What are you even doing? Like, what are you even removing it from that room? I mean, just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Stop focusing on it, like Joseph is saying, like, just leave it. It's not what would you call, the doll is not a famous, it's giving it some kind of a famous Hollywood style, and I don't like it at all. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's
Shireen,
enough.
I want to jump in 1 second. So I don't know, maybe we can even do a podcast for a future. We'll get Joseph back on for a second round here. I had a situation, and then it was a doll that was brought in to accompany the deceased. She was a very young girl, 16 years old, died of a car accident. No drugs or alcohol involved. It was just like a rainy patch where the car kind of hydroplaned, and she was one out of 4 passengers that passed away. And when her sister brought in the doll to get cremated with her, the doll had exactly the same crack in her face as the decedent. And I'm talking an exact outline, like you could not have drawn a more accurate. So when the doll was placed on top of her, if you looked like almost like, let's say you were behind her, it was the same exact like demarcations. It was something that was just so bizarre, as in my career as a funeral director, that it was just really one of those surreal situations. And when asked her sister why the doll had a crack, she says, "Oh, my sister used it as a change purse, and she had it since she was 2. So she died at 16. She's had this doll 14 years, and the doll's crack in her face, she would put her change in there." So just a supernatural, like just kind of paranormal, just one of those situations again involving a doll.
Yeah, if you ever want to go off on tangents, I got lots of stories.
I think this sounds like a part two situation,
Yeah.
because we could get into these kinds of stories all day. I mean, I have stories as well to share. So, but let's move on to your quote, Joseph, because I think your quote needs a little bit of a chat as well. So, quotes of the day for all the listeners, picked by Joseph. He says, "The purpose of life is living, full stop." And I did my research, as I do, trying to find who actually said it, and I actually couldn't find the person that actually said it. So, Joseph, would you mind not only, telling us where this quote came from, but also what it means to you?
Okay, so where this quote came from, I don't know. The first time I heard it, I was attending a week-long meditation course at a place called Oneness University. It was outside of Chennai, India, and I had some major spiritual awakening experiences there. And one of the teachers said, he asked he asked the class, "Okay, so can anyone tell me what the purpose of life is?" And, people would start up and say, "Well, the purpose of life is to find out who you are and to live your meaning in life and to do whatever it is you're born to do and to fulfill your destiny." Says, "No, nice try for this." And then anybody else, so everyone else is coming up with the ideas what the purpose of life is. And he just goes, "No, the purpose of life is living. So please get on with it. It doesn't matter. We're here to live. That's what we're here to do. We're here to experience life to the fullest or not the fullest. And that means not necessarily all the good things, but the up and down roller coaster of what it means to be human." Because I think that, the big part of the reason here is we're here to learn more or less in the course of our lives. We go through all these things, health, relationships, finances, all these things. But in the end, it's like it's a story or it's a walk of personal growth. And so, and how we do that is in the act of living. Now, do you need to be a spiritual person to do that? Absolutely not. So it's whatever is placed in front of you is to take on life to the fullest. And if that means working hard or having fun the most or whatever it is, you know,
I love that. Thank
go
you.
Yeah,
live your life. Yeah.
beautiful.
Go and
Get off
live
your
your
get
life.
off your phone and go live.
I love that. Go and live your life, listeners,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
While you're at it, Joseph, can you tell us a little bit about your background and who you are?
Sure. So, my name is Joseph Drumheller. I'm from the United States. I started off, I've always had a very deep spiritual connection to nature. That I was born with that. And so I have just like, I could go on for stories of hours and hours on that. So that led me to get a degree in geology. And I worked as a mineral exploration geologist for a number of years. And I got to go fly in helicopters around some of the most remote parts of the planet, stuff like that. But I always had this spiritual inclination too. And so I frequently get laid off as a geologist due to the market fluctuations of metals. And so I was always having spare time off. And so with my natural inclination, I got involved in hypnotherapy. And so I went to see a hypnotherapist once because I read an article in a little newsletter. And the first experience I had just blew me away. I just had these like incredible mystical experiences, one after the other. And I realized from that first session that I went into that there's a cause and effect of working in the subconscious mind and how it affects your physical 3D life on a day-to-day basis. And so what happened to me, I had these real powerful experiences. I realized I stumbled onto some very powerful medicine. I didn't know what it was. And then over the course of the next 3 years, I continued to have like these mystical experiences. I was getting more and more into hypnotherapy, got certified and stuff. But in the context of that, I just had an explosion come out in creativity. So, I turned into a writer, a musician, and an artist. And so like all this creativity was coming out all over the place. And so I went and got certified and I played around with hypnotherapy for about 10 years, just mostly on myself and on friends and family and stuff like that, just because I was so fascinated with it. And then I moved to a smaller town in Washington State, and I was wanted to market myself, but I was, it's always been a challenge. And so I was reading this book called Guerrilla Marketing. It's, I don't know if you remember that book, but I think it's in the 90s or something. And so I was reading, said, well, when you move to a new town, you should go volunteer someplace. So I went to volunteer at the hospital, and I thought I would just go, carry trays around to rooms or help push people in wheelchairs or whatever I could do just to start meeting people and getting connected. So I went over to the volunteer center. She saw that I was a hypnotherapist, and she sent me straight over to the cancer center. And so all of a sudden I was working as a hypnotherapist with cancer patients. And so I did that for 6 years. And in that experience, I definitely honed my chops as a hypnotherapist. I experienced life and death on a regular basis with people, and just going through these incredible experiences. And then I went to get more training at this time, towards the end of that, in a place called India, where I came up with that quote. And I went through some major mystical experiences again, opened me up to uh, higher realms of energy, I guess you could call it, while I was working in the hospital. And so while I was working there, I went from a hypnotherapist to what I'd call a healer. And so the energy that was coming through my body. I could feel it all the time. It's never stopped since. And so, um, and then after working at the hospital, I moved back to my hometown where I'm living now, got more into the hypnotherapy, started creating online courses, creating my own academy, and here we are. So that's kind of the abridged version. There's tons of stories in the middle, but I'll just leave it at that. So spirituality has been a really driving force in my life. It's very impactful. And I can, and right now we're at a time of massive transition as human beings. And what we're learning to do now is what we're learning to tap into the higher vibrations or the non-physical vibrations of what it means to be human. So that's going to be part of our evolution as a species. And we're going through it right now. So with all this chaos going on in the world right now, there's this big spiritual growth phase that's going on with people. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it unfolds, because we're right in it right now. So this is it. We're here. This is the
Joseph,
show we've all been waiting for.
let's
So
tune in next week for part 2 from Friends from Wild Places.
You've been listening to Friends from Wild Places with Shireen Bueta. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast from the links to catch every episode and unleash your passion.